Canada's tax system is broken for workers. You work 12-hour shifts 7 days a week and still barely survive.
So many Canadians are divided, so many are like brainwashed, and so many just simply don't care.
Alabama now has a higher standard of living than Canada.
Out of nowhere, Canada became poorer than Alabama. How is that even possible?
We are so cooked in this country. 400 years to reverse child poverty in Canada.
So Canada just rolled out 100 million in scholarships only for students from India. Let me ask a serious question. What exactly is going on here?
Is Canada actually poorer than Alabama?
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Canadian Rant. Today we need to talk about something that honestly sounds unbelievable. Out of nowhere, Canada is now being compared to Alabama in a way that most Canadians never expected. According to a recent report highlighted by the Globe and Mail, when you adjust to incomes for purchasing power, the average Canadian now falls behind the average resident of Alabama. Let that sink in for a moment. For decades, Canadians were told that our country was one of the most prosperous places in the world. A country rich in oil, gas, timber, farmland, minerals, and freshwater. A country with vast natural resources and a strong economy. And yet today, many Canadians feel like they are working harder than ever just to stay afloat. Rent keeps rising, groceries keep getting more expensive, energy costs are climbing. People are asking themselves the same question every day. How did we get here? Today we're going to talk about this comparison, what it actually means, and why so many Canadians feel like affordability in this country is slipping further and further away. Let's get into it.
Out of nowhere, Canada became poorer than Alabama. How is that even possible? You're telling me a country with oil, gas, timber, farmland, fresh water, one of the most resource-rich nations on planet Earth, is now trailing a U.S. state that most Canadians used to joke about. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens by 11 years of the Liberals. We don't lack resources. We lack incentive alignment. Alabama didn't suddenly discover gold. They aligned policy around growth, energy, and business, while Canada decided optics matter more than output. And here's the dangerous part. Most people don't realize GDP per capita is failing because headline GDP still grows from immigration. More people means lower productivity per person. That's how you mask decline. Canada is one of the most resource-blessed nations in the world, but resources don't matter if you punish the people extracting them. And this isn't about left versus right. It's about incentives. And for 11 years, the incentives have been wrong.
Why Canadians feel poorer today? Taxes alone don't hurt people. It's taxes plus inflation plus high interest plus low wages. Canadians feel poorer because wages didn't rise fast enough. Your paycheck did not grow like your rent, food, gas, or mortgage.
So Canada just rolled out 100 million in scholarships only for students from India. Let me ask a serious question. What exactly is going on here? Canadian families are struggling with tuition, housing is insane, young Canadians are drowning in debt before they even start their careers, and the government's priority is to send 100 million in scholarships overseas. Explain the logic to me. If you're a Canadian citizen working 2 jobs to afford school, how exactly does this policy help you? And I'm not blaming the students from India. If somebody offers you free money and a better opportunity, of course you take it. The real question is, why is the Canadian government prioritizing everybody except Canadians? Because this is the pattern. You import labor, import students, import demand, while the people who actually grew up here are competing for fewer opportunities every year.
I know it doesn't really affect me because I live in Canada, but I was just super curious, just wondering, because I kept getting these things coming at me for credit card this, credit card that, and everyone just flooding me, my emails, you name it, and I was getting sick of it, so I started doing some research. And apparently since 2022 in the States, 49% increase of people that just buy credit cards to max them out, never pay them off. They don't. They need the money for schooling, or they need the money for just to live. As in the States. So I started looking up at Canada, and Canada's not far off from that. So a lot of people are just not buying credit cards. They're just getting credit cards that their people are just throwing their ways, and they're just maxing them out and just never paying them back. I'm not saying to do that. That'll totally destroy your credit, but that's what people are doing. It's just mind-blowing. Really goes to show you.
We are so cooked in this country. 400 years to reverse child poverty in Canada. That's like saying it's never gonna happen. In fact, if we continue to elect these liberals, every single child in this country will be in poverty. I'm a data guy, so let's take a look at these numbers. Number of children under the age of 18 with food insecurity households. 2.5 million Canadian children are living with food insecurity in a so-called G7 country. We have the number one amount of fresh water. We are the second largest landmass on planet Earth. We have the third largest oil reserves. We have absolutely everything the world needs. Yet we have 2.5 million children that can't even eat. While our children in Canada go hungry, Mark Carney announced an additional $2 billion to Ukraine.
And, you know, during COVID, we heard all these different things like by 2030, you will own nothing and be happy, Agenda 2030. And then we're like, that's a lot of shit to happen in 10 years to make this Agenda 30 possible. But then you see the end of 2025, 2026, it's like we are speed running Agenda 2030. Every single day there's some new insane shit that happens, and so many Canadians are divided, so many are like brainwashed, and so many just simply don't care. They don't want to work. They don't want to have to do anything. And then the other half, like us, are like, we just feel so defeated. And we are down to work. We are down to work hard and save every penny. If it means we can own a house, if it means we can have the life our parents had, that generation had. But knowing that we can't, that is just so defeating. So what do we do from here? Well, what I believe it's going to take is for a government to stop gaslighting us and blaming other people and other entities for saying, oh, Trump's the reason why groceries are high. Trump's the reason why your rent is this much. These people can't take any accountability at all. Could you imagine if they were like, look, guys, we really screwed up. You know, things are the way they are and we screwed up and we want to make it right. And this is what it's going to take as Canadians, that we're all going to have to sacrifice together. I would guarantee you like 80% of Canadians would be like, okay, let's work together. At least you can be honest and tell us what it's really going to take. That's what I think it's going to take to fix this country. Do I think it's going to be done by this current government? No. Do I think it's going to be done by the Conservatives? No. It's going to take someone entirely new coming in. But then the scary part is that person won't make it. That person won't make it. They will not let someone like that get power. You know what I mean.
As someone born and raised in the Deep South, I have heard every slight and slur against those who live in the South. And it, of course, is extremely old at this point. And so it is with no small amount of glee that I reveal that Alabama now has a higher standard of living than Canada. There are very few words I can think of to describe my my happiness at this, because whereas Alabama has done pretty much everything right, Canada has pretty much done everything wrong. They should not be surprised at their failure, nor Alabama at their success. I just want to tell Canada, you're wrong in the way you've been doing things. Now go sit in the corner with your wrongness and be wrong.
Forward nation equals debt nation. So how much debt are we in?
I don't know about, what do you mean we?
Like, you're saying debt nation and forward nation?
That anyone with like a low to medium income is just gonna be paying off student loans. Like my dad is a professor right now.
Okay.
And he's been teaching for 16 years and he's still paying back student loans. And that's before the cuts to OSAP.
So people are gonna be in debt, that's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Ontario is the richest province and one of the richest countries in the world, and yet we're the province with the least funding to education.
So did you know that Canada actually on a per capita basis is actually poorer than Alabama?
I didn't know that, no.
Yeah, and Alabama has the fourth lowest life expectancy in America in all of their states. The whole idea of debt There's individual debt and then there's debt on a province level.
Well, what about Doug Ford just giving money to corporations? And
That's terrible. I don't think we should do that.
But why should money come out of education and not what Doug Ford is using the money for his own interest?
Well, I don't think it should go to either. Do you think that we should use the money to pay back the debt of the province?
Yeah, but I think Doug Ford is not going to stop doing either of those, and I think education is probably like one of the most important things that provincial funding should go to. So I think that should be the first thing that we should do.
100%. So last question for you: who do you want to replace Doug Ford?
I'm not sure.
You gotta have a replacement, right?
Yeah. Merit Styles seems like a good option to me.
Okay.
But I guess we would just have to see.
All right. Well, thanks for talking to me. Joseph, by the way. In order to cover the Liberal Convention this April, I'm asking for your help to fund the trip. Link in my bio if you can help, and it's much appreciated.
Canada's tax system is broken for workers. You work 12-hour shifts 7 days a week and still barely survive. If you're a laborer making $60K a year, nearly 30% of your check is gone before you even get to see it. And that's just income tax. Before GST, property tax, and insane rent prices eat up the rest. After taxes, you're left with around $42K. Now subtract $1,500 a month for rent, $800 for groceries, $400 for gas, and you're already in the red before you even save a dime. And the crazy part is, the more you work, the more the government takes. Welcome to the endless loop of just working to survive. Does this feel familiar? Comment below and drop a follow if you're tired of this life.
Is Canada actually poorer than Alabama? That's the provocative headline of a news story out of the Globe and Mail in Toronto. They sent a reporter from Canada to travel to Alabama and around the Deep South, understanding the rise of the American South in manufacturing, in business, and then comparing it against some economic factors in Canada and saying, really, what are some things that the American South is doing, quote unquote, better than Canada? But also putting those into context and seeing what that really means for local residents. Let's get into it. It really hinges on like one metric. It's GDP per capita. And they compare all of the 50 United States against all of the Canadian provinces in 2024, that Alabama ranks higher than all of the Canadian states. Tim points out, of course, our history of segregation, civil rights, Martin Luther King Jr. in the Birmingham jail. And so there's just this like emotional shock power, I think, just like stereotypically always at the bottom. It's shocking to see it near the top. So the article not only points out that, of course, that some of those stereotypes are out of date or not true at all, but that really in the last few years, Alabama has been doing awesome in terms of the economy. They point out growth of automotive, manufacturing, business. From a business perspective, the article also details like why investing in Alabama is attractive, which is typically lower pay for workers, lower tax burdens for companies, easy permitting and regulations, and that none of this was an accident. This is all kind of part of an intentional 25-year effort from certain people in the state who the journalist talks to attract business and just broaden the state economy. Alabama has been improving on its education trajectory, quality of life trajectory, but the reporter points out that if you're not in these booming parts of the state, if you're not getting work in one of these high-paying industries, if you live in a part of the state that has declining population or declining investment, life is really hard because the state hasn't invested in a safety net. Again, poverty is still pretty high. Maternal mortality and other statistics are really unfortunately high. And so, of course, not everything is good, but this article is taking things from a business lens. And really, he's structuring it as a wake-up call for Canada. Like, basically, if Alabama is doing so well, what do we need to do to help Canada do better? And what I thought was just really interesting, too, is the idea that, like we say, all politics is national. This article is essentially making the argument that all business is national, too. And even a company that is playing on a local or regional scale needs to be aware of what is happening nationally and internationally.
This really needs to be said. In Canada, there is only one-sided media. there's no such thing as conservative media in Canada. There's none. There's like Rebel News, which is basically independently funded, and the government tries to basically make it so they can't report anything. They tried to ban them from press conferences, and they've even tried to arrest Ezra Levant, the guy who's behind it. But there is not a single conservative voice in Canada on mainstream media, which is really dystopian for someone of my age who's grown up here. And, you know, I'm 46 years old now, and CBC has always been kind of, you know, a joke, but it's always been, you know, two-sided. They'd have a conservative pundit and a liberal pundit with talking points for both sides. But that ended in 2015, essentially, when Trudeau got in and he changed whatever laws he did to take over the CBC and make them dependent on the Liberal government. Global and CTV are included in those propaganda networks, but it's very dystopian in Canada. The media is all one-sided, and this is a country of monkeys. Like, Canada, I hate to say it, the people here are so fucking dumb. Like, I feel like Elon Musk all the time, because everyone's so stupid here. They just, all they listen to is what's on the news here and repeat that. Oh, but Trump and his terrorists, we better elect Carney. He's gonna fight Trump. Are you kidding me? Like, you honestly think repeating propaganda makes you look like you know what the fuck you're talking about? Honestly, it is pure government propaganda. You no longer have a country. Canada's not really a country anymore. It's kind of like a weird plantation where they steal everybody's money and launder it to other countries so they can, you know, eventually end up in their in the politicians' offshore bank accounts. Like Mark Carney, you know, he's just raking it in. His Bermuda bank account is just skyrocketing, and his shares and inside of his blind trust are skyrocketing as he makes all these deals for Brookfield. The average Canadian citizen who votes here is, their IQ's probably, they're below the retard level. You know, like 80 or whatever. They said if your IQ's below 80, you're retarded. I would say at least 55% of Canada is retarded and has an IQ below 80. Their IQ, they might be able to pass an IQ and get 100. I don't know. But they're like, you know, their self-awareness IQ is like 10, 20. They don't think for themselves. They look to basically Mark Carney for their opinion. They're like, oh, what's CBC saying? Let me go repeat that in the world so I sound like an idiot. That's what our country's like. Like, we just announced, you know, that we're sending another $2 billion to Ukraine. We don't have $2 billion to send to Ukraine. We just borrowed $78 billion to cover the fucking interest payments to the bank. Because we're spending like, what was it, $90 billion a year on interest payments to the bankers? To the Illuminati? We're paying $96 billion to the Illuminati per year, and we're spending $70 on healthcare. No big deal. And Canadians are just seal clapping for the destruction of their country. Like, Canada's unrecognizable. Donald Trump, please put us on the list next to invade.
The Globe and Mail published an article this week. Out of nowhere, Canada becomes poorer than Alabama. Alabama's now richer than the average Canadian. So, on a per capita adjusted for purchasing power, Canada now has fallen behind Alabama. So, I dug into sort of what's going on in Alabama, and Huntsville, one of the fastest growing communities there, they had a new mayor in 2008 who came in and day one said, red tape is for suckers. He goes, I'm going to make us a business friendly environment so you can get your plant built quickly. You can get permits, you can get construction, you can build homes. Everything's going to be quick. We're going to be business friendly.
When people hear the comparison between Canada and Alabama, the reaction is usually shock. Not because Alabama is a bad place, but because Canadians have always believed their country was among the most economically stable and prosperous nations on earth. For generations, Canada built a reputation for opportunity. People believed that if you worked hard, followed the rules, and contributed to society, you would eventually build a comfortable life. But today, many Canadians are starting to feel like that promise is slipping away. Young people are struggling to buy homes. Families are spending more of their income on groceries and rent. Workers are seeing their paychecks stretched thinner every year. And the frustration grows when you remember just how resource-rich this country actually is. Canada isn't a country lacking opportunity. It has enormous reserves of natural resources, massive agricultural land, and some of the most valuable energy assets in the world. On paper, it should be one of the most economically secure nations anywhere, which is why so many people are asking the same difficult question. If Canada has so much potential, why do so many Canadians feel like life is becoming harder instead of easier? Of course, economic comparisons can be complicated. Different regions have different costs of living, different wages, and different economic structures. But what this conversation really highlights is something deeper. It shows how many Canadians are feeling about their everyday reality. The feeling that the cost of living is rising faster than opportunity. The feeling that working harder doesn't always lead to getting ahead. And the feeling that the country they grew up believing in might be facing challenges that deserve serious attention. None of this means Canada is finished or that things can't improve. But it does mean people are paying attention. And sometimes the first step toward change is simply acknowledging what people are experiencing. Because when ordinary Canadians start asking difficult questions about affordability, opportunity, and the future of the country, those conversations matter. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you feel like the cost of living in Canada has gotten harder over the last few years? Do you think Canadians today are better off or worse off than they were a decade ago? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to see what people across the country are experiencing. If you found this discussion important, hit the like button so more Canadians see it. And if you want more honest conversations about the economy, affordability, and everyday life in Canada, make sure to subscribe to Canadian Rant. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.